so we're taking up the last bit of our sausage, and we got all this great grease down in the pan that's going to help us make our gravy. What we do is we take a little bit of flour. And you never know how much grease you have, so you just sprinkle the flour in a little at a time and stir it up. And I'll show you about the consistency that you want to make good gravy, okay? So you see it working into the flour into the grease. You got to keep it stirred. But that is about where you want it, to where when it starts, it'll cover the bottom of your pan evenly as it's simmering. And we just let it cook for a few minutes. What we're doing is we're trying to brown the flour. While we're letting it sit for a minute, we can grab our milk, and we need to grab a glass of water. I use 2%, but you can use whole milk or skim milk. It's up to you. Always keep a glass of water handy when you're making gravy. Just keep stirring it, letting it simmer, and working it until it gets a little dark on you. And I'll show you. See, we've got our sausage all fried up. We've got our pan ready for our eggs. I've got my eggs in my bowl. And this is 8 medium-sized eggs. I usually use 6 large eggs if I have them, because I got a family that I've got a good-sized family. Take a fork and stir those eggs up good. Whip them eggs up. So you get them good and creamy looking. My oven's preheated for my biscuits, and I won't put my biscuits on until I add my milk to my gravy. Once I add my milk to my gravy, that gives me roughly 20 minutes left on my gravy. And that's about 20 minutes to cook my biscuits. So, because you want things to get done nearly the same time. You can cook your sausage ahead of time, because it's just as good cold. But you just keep working this flour and this sausage grease. You gotta let it sit and simmer, and it'll take a few minutes to get it. But you'll see it start to turn colors on you and get darker. You can also use bacon grease in your for making gravy. It works just as well, and some people actually prefer it. I do. that sausage grease will do the job. Now be careful, if you have really hot sausage, your gravy will be really hot. If you're cooking with a medium sausage, your gravy will have a little bite to it. It'll be good. If you don't like any heat, you can use mild sausage. Okay, see how we have turned that, the color of that mixture there? That's what we're looking for. This is good Southern cooking. This is what we eat just about every day around here, something like this. Okay, that is ready for milk. Put your milk in. And you want to stir it as you're putting it in. And you'll want to keep this gravy stirred. This is when we put our biscuits in the oven. And this is when we add salt and pepper to the gravy. You salt and pepper it to taste. Okay, and we got to keep this gravy stirred. About 10 minutes before everything's done, you'll turn on. I've got a pan sitting over here that's got butter in it for my eggs. I'll turn that pan on and I'll let it sit and let it simmer until it starts smoking. Okay? Until it nearly starts smoking. Then you throw the eggs in and you can whip them right up. But you're going to see that. You keep working this. You don't let it sit. You can let it sit briefly as you do something else real quick, but you really got to stay on top of your gravy. You got to keep it stirring. It'll try to stick to the bottom, and you keep that going. Okay, let's find us some salt and pepper to put in here. I wouldn't try this at home unless I was confident about using that. I'd use a normal salt shaker until I got used to about how much salt to use. But I've done this several times. Okay, so we got us some salt and pepper in there. We're ready to continue stirring. I'm cooking this in a non-stick skillet right now, but if you have an iron skillet, that is the route to choose. The only thing about it is you need to train your iron skillets. Excuse me. You need to train your iron skillets. When they come to you, they are not ready to cook. You need to bake them in the oven with grease, lard. You can use bacon grease. You can use, you can tell I'm a big fan of bacon grease. But you have to bake it in the oven and bake that into the skillet. And it may take several times before you get that skillet trained, but it is well worth it if you can get an iron skillet. Not only will it put iron into your food that we don't get very often, we don't get enough iron in our diets, but it will, it'll taste better. I promise you it will taste better. keep this stirring and keep all that mixed up, and it'll thicken up slowly on its own. But if you don't keep it stirred, you will wind up with really bad lumpy gravy, and nobody wants that. But you keep a glass of water on hand when this gets thick, because sometimes your gravy can get really thick and you don't want to add milk back to your gravy. You want to add water to it because it's better at thinning it out, and it will mix better than adding milk. So, and plus water's cheaper. So, you know, it's a win-win. And it will not affect the taste at all. Like I said, you could use skim milk, whole milk, 2% milk. I prefer 2% milk. Now about 15 minutes after your biscuits have been in the oven, you'll want to keep an eye on them and you check them, because you want to make sure, especially if you've never cooked biscuits before, and especially if you're not sure about your oven, you know, and how it cooks biscuits. You want to make sure that you're not burning the bottoms. You want to make sure that your biscuits are on the middle rack, that they're in as even a heating situation as possible. We are cooking south of the Mason-Dixon, and we eat good down here. You can see that gravy heating up. It's starting to get hotter. It'll thicken up as it gets hotter. I may not have to add a drop of water to this. You can never tell, but it's always good to have it on hand, because once it can get thick so fast sometimes that you don't have time to break away from stirring it, or it'll burn. That's why you keep it on hand. It keeps you from messing your meal up. So we've got this going on medium heat because we want to slowly bring it to temperature. Just keep stirring your mixture and stirring it, and you'll be fine. And I think what we're going to do is we're gonna pick this up in the next video, and we'll show you the meal done. How about that?